And just a reminder for those joining, if we can also remind people in the chat as they join that we have an Etherpad where you'll find all the documents for this session. We'll be using it. You can write in any language on the Etherpad. We'll try to be translating it. And we have interpretation in French, Spanish, and Arabic, so you can go to those channels. If you can't find those channels, send us a message on the chat and we will be supporting you. Okay, a reminder to everybody to speak slowly so our interpreters don't run out of breath. So welcome to this learning clinic. I'll be one of your facilitators. The idea of this Let's Connect clinic is to focus on that hard subject, theory of change and metrics. And especially for those who are applying for Wikimedia funds to really help you in your proposal writing. So we hope that today you will be able to further develop or adjust your theory of change based on tips that you receive and a lot of peer feedback. Remember that Let's Connect is about peer learning, so we're here to share and learn from each other. So that will be the focus of our exchange today. And we hope that at the end, you'll be able to think of some of the core and open metrics that will help you when you're writing your proposal in the next few weeks. This is our agenda. We're going to start with a quick poll to see how you're feeling today, you're feeling about these topics. We're going to go through the 5 easy steps, making this as simple as possible through a case study example. We're going to go into breakout rooms where you'll be able to discuss some of your projects and get some peer feedback. We'll share what you took from those breakout rooms. We're going to briefly look at 2 important tools that might help you in your next year of work. And then we're going to close and think of some next steps. So here's again a link to the Etherpad, and I will start opening the poll. There are 2 questions, so make sure you can answer the 2 questions. And I will start here. You should see them up on your screen, and I'll read them out in case that's also helpful. How clear are you on your theory of change? I don't understand what this is. I have a draft, but feel it is messy. I have an idea in my head, and I think I have a good theory of change. This is anonymous, so feel very comfortable to share what you're really feeling about this. And you can also go to the next question, which is, how do you feel about your metrics? I haven't thought of any yet. I feel we measure numbers, but they don't mean much to us. I want to explore new metrics, or I have a clear idea of what I want to measure and why. So we have 52% of people answered. I'll wait for a few more seconds. If you can't see the poll, it should come up on your screen or on the 3 dots where it says more. You should be able to open the poll. If not, you can maybe just respond in the chat of how you're feeling. Okay, so let me share here some of the results. So we have about 20% of people feel like they don't understand what it is. Fantastic. I have a draft, but it's messy. We want to see those messy drafts today. 40%. 30% have it in their head. We want to hear what's in your head today too. Doesn't matter if you didn't write anything down. And 6% think, I have a good theory of change. So that's great. We'll learn a lot from you today. How do you feel about your metrics? Some of you haven't thought about it. Some of them feel like you've been measuring things that don't mean much to you. 58% are wanting to explore new metrics. Yes, this we'll be discussing today. And 12% feel you have a clear idea. Great, we want to learn from you. Okay, so now that we know how people are feeling, we see a variety. Let's dig into this. That was the poll. So theory of change. Oh, I think I haven't started recording. Is that correct? Or I did? Okay, thank you, Toshi. All right, so a theory of change, it sounds very difficult, that name, but really it's just a way to organize your ideas. So what it is that you want to achieve, what strategies are you choosing to achieve them? Why do you think those strategies will work? Why haven't you picked other strategies? And how will you measure if they worked, or how will you learn if they haven't worked and what you need to improve? That is the theory of change. So it's just a simple steps to organize your ideas. Let's look at these 5 steps through one example, right? So the first thing we're going to see through this example is, what does this organization want to achieve? What are their strategies? What are some of their activities to make those strategies happen? What are they assuming? Why do they think that these strategies will work? What do they need to learn to see if they're moving in that direction, in the right direction? And then what information will they need to be able, what information they will need to be able to learn and see if they're moving in that right direction. And those are the metrics. So this is just a hypothetical case taken on a real project, which is the Dagbani user group. Haven't taken all of their programs, but just taken some of the things that they want to achieve. So what is it that the Dagbani user group that's based in West Africa, what do they want? And this is common with many projects. We want to grow our community. We want it to be more active. We want to diversify the community. And this includes creating space for new leadership as well within the user group. We want to increase content and readership in our local languages or the regional languages in West Africa, in this case, the Gur and Mabia languages. And we want to fill a knowledge gap that exists today on Wikimedia projects, on local culture and in those languages. So that's very common to a lot of projects. Just want to say that this example probably doesn't reflect a lot of the work that many of you here on the call do. It's just an example to walk you through the theory of change. But many of you are working with many different objectives that are different to these. So what strategies have the Dagbani user group decided on? They said, right, we are going to deliver a capacity building program that reaches a really wide audience, and TV is very popular, so we're going to do it through television. Next, we're going to partner with educational institutions to implement reading Wikipedia in the classroom. We want teachers and students to be a core audience for us to build our movement. And not only do we want them to use this in schools, but we want to create hubs of students to contribute content, but also be part of the movement and be leaders in the movement. And we want to implement campaigns and activities to translate Wikidata into local languages, and to create content that bridges that knowledge gap on local Wikipedias. And for each one of those strategies, they define a series of activities. It's important when you're writing your proposal to really differentiate between strategies and activities. So the strategy is like the broad approach or the program that you are going to develop. And the activity is the specific action that you're going to do for that strategy to happen. So the number of workshops, building a teacher's guide, doing an editathon, those are activities that relate to your strategy. So these are the strategies that they chose. The first thing that I want us to think about is, what are their assumptions? Why does the Dagbani group think that this is going to work? And they have to prove that their assumptions were right? This is how we learn if we're moving in the right direction. So one, they think that training through TV will work, that people will build the necessary skills, that they'll not only reach existing contributors and get them to be continually engaged, but will also reach newcomers that today are not in the movement. They also think that teachers and students, through using Wikipedia in the classroom, will gain the skills necessary, but will be interested in using it in the classroom and contributing to the movement in the longer run. And they're also assuming that the content that people come to build will be focused on those knowledge gaps, and that readers will be interested in those contents. So a lot of assumptions there that need to happen so that their strategy works, right? So I want us to take 2 minutes. You can add on the chat, or you can also use the Etherpad to think of what the Dagbani group needs to learn to be able to see if they're achieving what they want to achieve. To see if these changes that they're hoping for are happening. What do they need to learn? Okay, we're seeing some great ideas come in. How well will the TV meet the needs? So maybe viewership, what barriers they may be for people to watch TV, what's the definition of quality content, what type of content is important and useful. So these are great ideas. And what I'm seeing here is that we're looking into measuring more than numbers. Okay. We're looking at measuring really understanding if their strategies are building the right skills that people need. Are they reaching that audience through TV? Is it leading for people to be trained, but also actually contributing, either editing or doing other work like organizer work? They would need to learn from their reading Wikipedia in the classroom. Are teachers changing their perception? Are they actually using it in the classroom? They would need to learn from the strategy around the student hub. If the students are motivated to continue to participate in the movement, are they creating good quality articles? So a lot of things around those strategies that would be interesting to learn, which would require us to look beyond just knowing how many people were trained or how many trainings I did, etc. Agnes, you're following the chat. Is there anything you'd like to add before we move on?
I really like the connection between online and offline. So how does TV relate to the online wiki world? Because definitely improving skills, for instance, via television, it's something that brings editors away from the wiki platforms. And therefore, the questions to learn about how to relate a different tool in building skills for wiki, that's very good to indeed learn about and see the potentials and the barriers and the limitations of this. I don't speak French, unfortunately, but also I think it's good to see when you think about the television and how you reach out to a global audience, what are the key messages that you would like as a strategy to convey through that messaging about Wikimedia, and what role does it play in skill development, let that be information media literacy, digital skill development, or for educational purposes, for instance, or the role it plays in cultural heritage preservation. So that would be something that I would like to think about. Thank you, Jessica.
Great. So there's a lot of things that we could focus on learning, right? And one thing that we want to really insist on here and as a tip is let's prioritize. We can learn about a lot of things, but what do we want to focus on? Maybe in 1 year, we just want to learn about whether TV is the effective mechanism to train, build those skills, and keep people motivated. And then the next year, we'll learn more about the hubs or about filling the knowledge gap. So we wanted just to show all the possibilities of what would be interesting things to learn. Before we look at how to take those learning questions, those things that we want to learn, and transform them into metrics, I want to recognize that a lot of you have asked, people in this room have asked, why do I need metrics? What am I measuring this for? And whom is this for? Is this for the foundation? Is it for a report? Is it for our funders? Is it for our community? Is it for me? What am I doing this for? And the message is, first of all, this is for you to learn and reflect if you're moving in the right direction or something needs to change. So it's not just a number that you'll look at with your team and you'll say, this hasn't told us if the TV worked, if people are motivated, if they're continuing to participate. It's just told us a number of how many people were trained or how many people or how many contents were built. So the first thing is the focus of the metrics is your team and for you to learn. The second is, obviously, you want to show that the Dagbani group wants to show that it's contributing to the movement. And some of the information is important to be able to compare with how West Africa is growing in terms of communities, in terms of contents, in terms of local language Wikipedias, in terms of Wikidata. So those metrics are also outward looking and to build trust in the movement and all the stakeholders involved. So with that in mind, I want us to now think about Dagbani metrics, right? These are some of the learning questions that we determined, and you've added some more in the chat. Now let's brainstorm what would be some good metrics for the Dagbani group. I see some of you have already written some metrics. But let's think about, how would I be able to answer these questions? What measurements do I need to be able to answer these questions? And there's no wrong answer. So any idea counts. Agnes, do you want to share some of the things coming up in the chat?
Yes, they haven't come up yet. So there are still suggestions for questions, learning questions. So at this stage, we would like to receive ideas for metrics. What would you suggest measuring in order to answer some of these questions? For instance, would it be growth in readership? So does a program through television increases people's interest in reading Wikipedia or editing? How do you measure those people who you would like to continue edit Wikipedia, for instance? And then, okay, we have one from Veronica. The percentage of people who came to the program due to the TV show and have an average of 5 edits per month for the next 3 months. Very specific, Veronica. This is a good example of a very specific metric that is possible to measure because we have the tools to measure, and relevant for you because it's informative and it answers your question, and also helps you to define the retention rate for you, so the effectiveness of your program.
So I see some great ideas there in terms of, as well, like changes in perception, how much people are applying what they learned, for example, teachers into the classroom. We're seeing from Olga how many people watched the program on television. Some great ideas. So here are some of the ideas that the Dagbani group came up with. So here we think it's important to differentiate output metrics from outcome metrics. And output metrics are often those related to your immediate activities, right? So it's good for you to monitor whether you've achieved something. You know, did I train the number of people I said I was going to train? Did I do the number of activities? Did I build the guidebook that I needed? Did the number of articles that I want to contribute, or they contributed? So those are very short-term measurements. But what we want to measure with those, to respond to those questions we asked, is much deeper than that. So the number of how many people edited or watched the show will be good. It will tell me that something good is happening, but it won't tell me about that longer term change, and why I've been successful or not been successful. So other metrics, which we call outcome metrics, will be able to measure, for example, things like perception changes, or if people are taking action based on that. So are people contributing over a period of time? Do they have the right skills? Are they producing the contents of good quality? Or maybe they're not editing, but they've gone on to be movement organizers. Are they organizing other activities? Are the articles that are being written actually addressing those gaps that I was hoping to address? And some of that can be done through numbers. So I monitor how the percentage of people, or that change over time, but also I can document case studies, and I can show stories of the story of a student who watched the training on television and then went on to be a movement organizer and is contributing, and tell the story of what I did to make that change happen. How did I influence that person's journey through the movement? And that's where we can learn from case studies, or somebody who I trained but never showed up again, and why that is the case. What were some of the barriers? Was it because they couldn't access the television? Could it be because they didn't have resources to continue to edit? Was it because they received harassment? So documenting those case studies will let me understand, what do I need to address in my programs to be able to be more effective. I'm going to skip this slide here. This is just to indicate some of the differences between what a number can tell me and what I might need more information about, just to illustrate that point. So just to finalize here, before we go into the breakout rooms to look at your case study, is a few tips. So you're going to say, Jessica, everything you said is fantastic, but we have very limited staff time, or we don't even have staff to do this. We only have volunteers, and being able to collect all this information and analyze it is very difficult. So here is where the tips are important. One, we've talked about a lot of different things that you can measure. Prioritize. What is the most important thing for you to learn in this year, next year of your work? And pick one metric or two metrics per strategy. I think there's a mic open if somebody can just help me close it. Okay. The second thing is mix the open and core metrics. So in the application form, you're going to see the core metrics are those numbers related to participants, editors, organizers, and contents. Those are the numbers that will be important so we can compare what's happening with the rest of the movement. But those numbers themselves will not tell you everything that you want to learn. And that's why the open metrics are important. So you can define those other changes or stories, perceptions, behaviors, and why that is happening. And 50% of grantees in the last year left those open metrics completely blank. They didn't think about anything. And they know that the core metrics aren't enough and they're not always useful for them. So our invitation is really think about those 5 open metrics that you want to prioritize in your application form. Oh, sorry. Leave resources for this. Many of you are just starting your first grant, so you might not be able to leave a big budget for this, but think about at least some of your budget to be able to take the time to develop your metrics, maybe get some external support from somebody who can help you with this. Those of you who already have annual plans, we recommend you really leave a good amount of resources. So 10% of your budget is a good benchmark so that you can really leave time for learning and evaluation and not just for your programmatic activities. And this is more than money. You also need to build this into your timetable and have time to be able to use this information to analyze with your teams. There are some tips that we've included here of what we've learned from the last year, of some recommendations when you're filling out your core metrics and your open metrics. We'll just leave them there as information so we can get into our breakout rooms. And I'll hand it over to Agnes.
Thank you, Jessica. Thank you very much for the presentation. And now we are moving on to our breakout sessions. The idea that we developed is that we will break into 4 different groups, and there will be interpretation in the main room, and whoever needs interpretation should stay in that room. And in the other groups, the facilitation will happen in English. What we are going to do, we are trying to work through at least 3 examples that you brought to us. And we will kindly ask you to present 1 example at a time. So you, the first participant explains their theory of change, main strategies and activities relatively briefly. And then we will invite the participants to suggest metrics that are reflective of the change that you would like to achieve and or reflective of your activities' effectiveness or purposefulness. And then we will select the best metrics. So we will ask the participant who presented which are the metrics that they found most useful. And then we will go on to the next example. So we will repeat this 3 times. Each case, we will have about 10 minutes. And then we will come back in this common room and we will briefly present the types of metrics that we discussed. We also would like to learn about how the metric that was selected by the participant will actually inform their strategy or will inform their activities, or how it will help them to revise their program planning. So these are the thoughts that we are going to collect in the breakout rooms. Thank you, Jessica.
Okay, and before we go to the breakout room, just wanted to mention that here in the Etherpad is where we will be registering your ideas. So we'll have, for each group has one space, the main room with interpretation where Mercedes will be. You'll be able to brainstorm your ideas around metrics based on that case and write them down. Room one will be facilitated by me, group 2 by Veronica, and group 3 by Agnes. So you will be able to join the room that you want to join. Stay here if you need interpretation with Mercedes. And if you don't see where to join the room, then you should go to the More button on your screen or on your phone, and the 3 dots, you'll be able to see where to join the room. If you can't join the room, let us know in the chat which room you want to go to, and we'll be assigning you. Okay, so I'm opening the rooms now. So we'll just record this sharing out. So this is just 15 minutes where we want to hear from the groups. And I'll hand it over to Veronica, who's going to facilitate this discussion.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you everyone for such rich discussions. I hope they were helpful. At this point, we would love to hear from people on, is there, something that stood out for you, not only for your group, but also hearing from others. It could be a new idea you're working with, or it could be a new metric that you weren't aware of that you may be thinking more about beyond this session for your work. Anything that emerged for you that you would love to share with the group? And you could share on the chat.
I can get my group started. So we had 3 cases, Evelyn, Patricia, and Ruby at the end. So any of you, if you'd like to share any reflections on what was useful, what are you taking with you?
A lot of love. We learned a lot. Can I share that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah. Actually, yeah, we learned a lot. It was quite super interesting to hear the experience of some other affiliate leaders or project managers. Actually, for me, it was kind of very, very useful to, well, first of all, see that we are all facing kind of the same problems or type of activities or type of communities. So that's always very helpful. And also we had a very interesting conversation around how you say that? Sorry, reconnaissance. How you say that? Recognition. Recognition. Thank you. Sorry, I'm running out of languages in general. Of how to, what we understand for recognition of our volunteers, how we promote that, and how we measure that. So that was very, very useful for me, at least.
Thank you, Patricia. It's a question we also had in our group around it's recognition, and sometimes it's linked to motivation. So how do you even assess the effectiveness of that? In this case, we had, and Justice, please, if you're here, feel free to speak to what stood out for you. But it was interesting to ask the question around how do you assess if data stipend, for example, is a key factor to retention or to keep people motivated to be part of the community? Harriet.
Yeah, So for me, one of the key takeaways, which re-emphasizes something I learned some time ago, has to do with activities beyond just editing, in the sense that, well, we do bring people in to come and then edit and contribute on Wikipedia. But I remember from learning days back in 2019 that, well, we should go beyond just editing and having activities that kind of bring a feeling of belonging, that kind of like community spirit. And so I was happy to hear about some initiatives where people just meet and have a discussion where everyone gets to speak on whatever they've learned and present something small to the group that doesn't have to do with editing on Wikipedia or collectively doing something. So I think this is an important thing to note at communities. Yeah.
Thank you, Harriet. Linking close to love is the best metric, and belonging, and the spirit. Yeah. Anyone from group 2, the group from Agnes as well, and the main group, something that stood out for you, something that you're carrying with you?
Maybe I can.
Yes,
I can just give a few words. What my observation was, rather than, and it is really nice to see that there was a lot of interest around new metrics and qualitative metrics, and to see what are the methods and methodologies that go beyond quantitative metrics that everybody knows and everybody already familiar with. But it's nice to see that there are toolboxes needed in order to give ideas, tips, and methods, easy methods for collecting data for qualitative research, which becomes more and more important as I observe. Thank you.
Thank you, Agnes. Thank you. And I hope we had a chance, and I understand we have Ilana here and Sylvia to talk about more tools. So Justice.
So I was saying that one of the issues that stood out for me was actually the question about diversity, and also how the question about what retention was in the kind of discussion that we're having. Usually, we always are thinking about the numbers rather than actually the intention around the number. So let's say one person can come for today, and that will be it. But then another person might be making smaller edits, but spread across like multiple sections, and that person might feel fulfilled than the person that wants to do the whole thing in one day and then just go about it. So like some of these little questions that we don't really ask ourselves. Sometimes it's very important. And so that was something I picked up from our conversation.
Thank you, Justice, for sharing. Carol?
I think my biggest learning, something I had not thought about as doing my first time for the community, was about retention and what Justice has just said. And it has just hit me home. Yeah, I might have this grant I'm applying, but I have not figured out how I'm going to have a retention of editors and how I'm going to carry them on the whole year when I'm doing my reports. So that has stood out for me, and I'm just thinking about it on behalf of the Kenya community. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. And Jessica may have mentioned it a little bit, and planning that into the year, the moments to stop, interview, check. It's a little bit more than we trained and people left. Mercedes?
Yeah, I would like just to add from the main group, one of the interesting things was, of course, to remind everyone and to see that the core metrics or basic metrics are useful, but also some of you were kind of concerned about, but that's the only thing that the foundation cares about. And I just want to underscore that that's not the case, that this is exactly why we're doing these kinds of exercise, where we're actually identifying what's relevant for you to measure, what's relevant for you to learn. And the other element that I wanted to underscore from the group is also how much can we share and how much is their experience built in the different Wikimedia affiliates across the globe that do similar work, and how much of the tools and experience can be exchanged to give each other materials, and I'm talking particularly about reading Wikipedia in the classroom, about what has been useful for you to measure, what metrics are relevant, what information have you been able to gather out of using certain metrics, and what of that can be useful and transferable to other spaces that are doing the same or similar work. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Monica, for being here. Thank you. Thank you, Mercedes. Any final thoughts as I pass it back to Jessica on the tools? All right, the 9-second rule has passed, so I'll pass it back to Jessica.
Thank you so much, Veronica. And before handing it over to Ilana, I wanted to pick up on what Mercedes said. And we were just trying to put together in one document. Obviously, this can be much better in meta or organized, but just to get us started, an idea was like, let's put a collective toolkit together of examples of surveys, examples of metrics we're using, examples of interview questions. So I hope this opens. We just got this started today. It's an idea. So if you would like to add your resources, we've put things that the community resources team has also created, external resources. And let's see if this is a nice way that we can share. So an invitation to continue this conversation and sharing through that document. And also looking at the Etherpad and maybe sharing some metrics ideas to groups that you didn't participate in. And I will now hand it over to Ilana, because we've all said it's not only those traditional number metrics. We want to focus on other metrics that will help us learn. But we've had a lot of difficulties with the number metrics. It's a lot of work. And sometimes we can't focus on those other interesting metrics because we're stressed with the program and events dashboard or manually registering how many people are editing what contents. So I want to introduce this as a work that's being invested in, it's a work in progress, but it's going to be very important for all of you. And Ilana's here just to share some of what it's about and to invite you to more conversations about it. Over to you, Ilana.
Okay, can everyone hear me okay? Great. Okay, so my name is Ilana. I work at the Wikimedia Foundation, and I'm on a team called the campaigns team. Some of you may be already aware of the campaigns team. We have sort of two parts. One's the program side, and then I'm in the product side. So the product side deals with building and improving tools for campaign organizers and participants. So the first tool that we've built, and it's already available on MetaWiki for organizers, but we're just finishing up 2 final features for it, is an event registration tool. So the way that it works is it allows people to register for events on Wiki. I'll demo a little bit of how it works, and I'll give you an opportunity to try it out yourself for our own team office hours page. We have an upcoming event ourselves, then we're using the tool. Why not? So let me just share my screen. One second. Okay. So you all should see an event organizer tools office hour. You all see it? Looks good? Cool. Okay. Let me just shuffle some things around on my screen to make it a little easier to present this. Okay. So right now you're seeing what is the organizer view for an event that uses the event registration tool. So up on top, this is our actual event page for upcoming office hours. And since I'm the organizer of the event, it says manage event. But if I was the participant of an event, and this is just in a test event on one of the test environments beta cluster, but I have it up so I can show you some things. I can register as a participant. And the way I would do that is I click register, and I have the option between public registration, which means everyone can see my username. So you don't have to be logged in. You don't have to be the organizer. Just anyone who goes to the event page can see my username, or private registration. Private registration means only the organizer can see my username, or organizers. There can be more than one organizer. So I can choose between the two. The advantage of private is, of course, it's private, it's more confidential. But the advantage of public is then my username can then be brought over to the dashboard event that's attached to this event. So it makes the tracking a little more accurate. So I'll just show right now what happens if I register for the event. So now it registers me. I'm Jenny 15. So this is the dashboard that's associated with the event. So I pulled up this dashboard event before I registered, so you can see now that I've registered, and when I refresh, my name will pop up. So let's refresh. And you see now Jenny 15. So in other words, when I logged in and I just registered for the event, my username was automatically pushed to the dashboard event. So now my contributions will be tracked. So that means that you as the organizer don't have to add the names manually to the dashboard. You don't have to ask other people to add themselves to the dashboard. And then simultaneously, you also have a list of people who are registered for the event. And some will be registered publicly and some privately. So here you can see the participant view. It just says one registered privately. I can't see who registered privately because I'm a participant. But let me log out of this test example and show you what it looks like for private registration for the organizer side. So if I were to go to that same event, so this is the name of the event. I'm just gonna copy and paste to find it. And here's the event. And if I click, I can see this little, like security lock icon, and that means those are private registrants, and I can see them because I'm the organizer. Some other things you may have noticed is this event page is in the namespace called event. So I will show you how to create an event page now that has registration enabled. So the way you do it is just like how you create many other pages, you can do it via search. So you can go search, and let's say I'm doing an edit-a-thon on, I don't know, nuts of the world. Nuts of the world. Peanuts, almonds, all that. So then I click here, creating the event page. And just like any other wiki page, I can write whatever I want here. But what's different about creating a page in the event namespace is when I publish, it allows me to enable registration. I don't have to, it's an option, but it's an option available because I created this special page that's in the event namespace. So I click enable registration if I want to, and I can set the time. I'll set it to, you know, my time zone here. I live in New York. I can set the start time, the end time. Something like this. Okay. And I just do that. I can add other organizers if I want. In order to add organizers, they need to also have the organizer right, which I can talk about in a second. But briefly, because we allow people to have some extra powers by using these tools, one way we make it a little more protected from a trust and safety perspective is if someone wants to use them from the organizer side, they need to get the organizer right, which is a user group. To be a participant, to register for the event, you don't have to be. You just have to be on the wiki where the event is. But to use the organizer tools, you need to have the organizer right. So if I knew someone else that had the organizer right and I wanted them to be an organizer, I could add them in. I can also add a link to a dashboard event if I want, and that's how we get that integration that you guys just saw. And then I can choose if it's online, in person, or hybrid, online and in person. I'll say online. You can do a meeting URL. You can do a group chat invite. And these links for the meeting URL and group chat invite will only show to people after they register for the event. And it will also be sent to their email if they have an email address associated with their account. So you can put in any information you want, and then you click enable registration. And then you have at the top of your event page, the header for the registration. Now, I didn't make a very pretty event page for this demonstration, but to show you what it might look like if there's more going on, you can look at our office hours page. So here, I can also share if people want to test. There's two options. You can test on beta, but I think it'd be a little more exciting for people to test on MetaWiki. But here's the link of the event that I just created on the beta cluster. And here's an actual event where people, if they want, they can test registering, because when you register, you can easily unregister if you don't actually want to attend our office hour. So we would love if you do. And here it is. 2 minutes left. Oh, okay. So now let's talk about why it's important. So as I've heard many of you discuss, metrics can be hard, not only because there's, you know, a lot of different things that you all want to capture, but in many cases, there aren't tools or resources that make it easier for you. So there's a lot of manual and labor intensive processes that you are all doing, which takes away time when you could, from other things you could be doing. And maybe also makes it easier for there to be some inaccuracies or some issues with the data because you don't have that technical support that can make it easier. So with this tool, it's easier for you to register participants. It's easier for participants as well to register on the wikis because they don't have to say, you know, add their signature. You don't have to use an off-wiki form. And there's also some additional parts of this feature that we're adding that will make it, I think, even more exciting for folks. Two features we're adding right now. One is to allow you to be able to email anyone from the participant list, as well as optional participant questions on things like their gender, their age, things like that. Also, oh yeah, and someone is mentioning the grant ID aspect. We're also looking into exactly how we can have a connection with the grant ID. So it's easier for grants folks to be able to just directly look in the data and see what impact you're having with participants. So it takes away a lot of the reporting responsibility on you because they'll just be able to look at the event and say, okay, these are the people who came. Here's the data that we have on some of their demographics. And then we can also see what they did with the dashboard integration. So a lot of that is off you. So we're still working on this tool and ways to improve it. And then we're going to be working on another project for organizers as well, which we'll be talking about in the office hours. But we really encourage people to use it and work with us so we can improve it, because our goal is to make it easier for all of you to have meaningful metrics that you can report out, and also better tooling so you can feel more supported and like you can do a better job with less effort in organizing events. Any questions? I don't know if we have any time.
Maybe we'll take one from Gert. I just wanted to say I put Ilana on the spot. The idea is to do a, obviously, there are tutorials that go through this very slowly with interpretation. So it's just to give you a taste and an invitation for being involved in this. The campaign product team need affiliates and grantees to work with them so that they do these developments in a way that is useful for you, and to take the load off your shoulder of all this traditional metrics, so you can focus on some of those interesting metrics that we looked at today. So thanks, Ilana, for that very short intro, and please participate in the conversation hour to start engaging with the team. Gert, a quick question. Go ahead.
Yes. Okay. I love to see the promising tool. This is what I have been dreaming of the last couple of years. But a question: when will it be available on the, let's say, Dutch Wikipedia, or all the others?
Yeah, so great question. That's actually a theme that has been on the team's mind a lot lately, because we went to Wikimedia, we talked to people about it, and they said, cool, I want that on my wiki. So we're looking into ways to enable the extension on more wikis. So if you think that also your wiki would be interested in it being enabled, definitely let us know, because we want to identify, say, sort of a next batch of wikis who can pilot it out, try it out. And so I think German would be fabulous. There's, so many people, so many editors, so many events. So we would love to do that. I think it just comes down to us kind of penciling it down, our plan, as in we're going to do the community work to talk to people and ask if we can enable it.
Yes, Clara. So Gert's in Belgium. So it would be any other questions while we have Ilana?
Yes, please.
Yes, Toshi, final question.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, Ilana. Thank you for the demo, and also thank you for what you guys are doing. I just wanted to know, if one gets the campaign rights or event rights, what happens next?
Yeah, so someone gets the organizer rights, and I can actually share the link for how one requests now to get the organizer rights. So you just add your name here. It's currently something that is granted via stewards, but we're going to be looking into ways to make it easier. And so there's more people going to be granted in the future, but that's the current process, is that you add your name and then you're granted the right. And then once you are granted the right, you can start right away creating event pages with registration enabled. If someone wrote, I got the rights on Monday, don't know what to do next. Okay, if you don't know what to do next, there's documentation, or we really would love to see you at our office hours. So we have 2 dates coming up next month. Here is the October 7th date for session A, and here's the October 10th session for session B. There are different times to accommodate different time zones. So we strongly encourage you to attend one or both to get a training and a multilingual sort of collaborative session. We also have documentation, and we also have a Telegram group. So I don't have the link to the Telegram group offhand, but I can share that with folks later on. And I can also give right now the link to the documentation on just the event registration tool. And we really encourage anyone ask us questions, to share any thoughts, feedback. If you think, this question is dumb, it's probably not. We're probably really excited to hear it, and we want to hear it because it's how we learn. So feel free to also check out our user guide here, or to go to the project page here, where you can interact in the talk page. And let me try to pull up the Telegram link too, while other people ask any other questions they have.
Thank you so much, Ilana. So we also have a very quick 3-minute demo. I want to invite Sylvia just to talk about something she's worked on for measuring retention and why this is important. Sylvia, over to you. And just remember to speak slowly for the interpreters.
Yeah. I speak slower in English anyways. So yeah, well, thank you for letting me share this. I shared with you, Jessica, the links so for people so folks can, you know, follow the conversation. And what I'm here to talk about is something I happily saw in the notes of the meeting, which is people are wondering, well, what can we do to retain our editors? And I don't have the answer for that, but I can tell that if we want to retain them, we have to understand who has stayed, right? Who is staying and who is leaving after we train them. So luckily, this is a code that is connected to the dashboard, and Ilana just showed that the new registration tool is also connected to the dashboard. So if you have dashboard data, you can use this code. There are the instructions there. So every time you find an emoji like this, the nerd emoji, it means you need to change a little thing inside, and the instructions tell you what is the thing that you need to change. And the way you use this is that you go to PAWS. I think, are you sharing the, yeah, so that's the second link that Jessica shared, that hub PAWS.wmcloud.org. So you go to PAWS, you download the code that I have prepared, which is, this is in English, this one is in Spanish, and these are the functions. So you only need either the English and the functions or the Spanish and the functions code. And you put that in your PAWS, which is this, and you open it there. So once you have that, you only need to change this link to your outreach dashboard. And what you get with that, that's the only thing you need to change, actually. And here I tell you where to get that link with this screenshots. And once you have that, you can do visualizations like this one, in which you can see which editors, here are the names of the editors, the users, kept editing after they were trained by you or your event or your campaign. So here you can see like, oh, there's this editor that kept editing one day after a lot and then nothing, right? Or you can see this one like, oh, there's this other user that 3 months after I trained him or her edited this much. So yeah, that's pretty much what this is for. And related, well, there's a video in Spanish that was done with Wiki Herramientas Uruguay, explaining how to use this code. There's also an index, so you can just jump to the part you're interested in. And yeah, this code could also be useful for getting recognition to them, like getting a badge the way the education team does, like creating badges for those who were retained so they can feel more part of the community. There's also in the European Union, they're using this type of badges, or you can conduct surveys, as folks were saying, to understand why did you stay or why did you leave? I thought you were going to stay. But yeah, you need to identify people first, and this is what this code is there for. So I hope I was within my 3 minutes, and yeah, that's pretty much it.
Thank you so much, Sylvia. And Sylvia developed this because I kept coming to her saying people want to measure retention, but there are no good tools. And she created this for teams that don't have maybe technical expertise or people who code. So I said, if you do something that I can do, then anybody can do it, because I'm not tech savvy. So hopefully people can start experimenting with this, and Sylvia's there to support you, but she's already created these great tutorials, but we're happy to hold more Let's Connect sessions to go through this. Any questions for Sylvia before we close our session?
Well, I see one in the chat asking how you put the code into PAWS. So in the video I shared around the minute 10, I show how you download the data, and it's going to be a zip file. And then you have to extract the data. So like right click and extract. And then the only thing you need to do is go to that, folder, search for the folder that says code. And then you just have to copy, as I said, either the Spanish version or the English version and my functions. So you just drag that into PAWS. Just like select those and you drag them into PAWS. You have to have your PAWS open like this. And then you drag them. And as you can see here, I dragged this one. I actually dragged like all of them, but I just, in this space, which opens here, when you open this folder, you'll see this space and you can just drag it from your file explorer and put it there. I hope that was clear, Richard. I meant it like very literally, like not dragging into the terminal, but rather really like you open your Explorer and then you select those two and you just move them with your, what is it, the name of the little arrow? Just the thing, and just put it into PAWS. Cursor, yes, that's right. Thank you, Richard. That's the word. Yes. So really just like dragging and dropping, that's the way you do it. And of course, I can share the link to the YouTube. It's in Spanish, but I mean, the images are there. So I hope that is a little bit useful.
You also did a session, Sylvia, with the Volunteer Reporters Network, which I've linked in there, the video.
Oh, the video
that's
is
in English,
already
right?
there?
Yes.
Ah, nice to
tutorial.
know. Thank you. Thank you, Jessica. I didn't. So yeah, there are the instructions there. That's good.
Fantastic. All right. So I think there's enthusiasm, Sylvia. People will start playing with your PAWS code, and we'll hold a second session, Let's Connect session around this specifically if there's demand for it. And to close now in the final minute, I'll hand it over to Veronica. And yes, Veronica, if you would like to close.
Yes.
And please give us feedback. For us, metrics are very important. So tell us how you felt, what was useful, what can we do better. Don't leave without filling out the Mentimeter link, which we will share in the chat now.
Yeah, just to say thank you everyone for taking your time and for sharing your experiences as well with everyone in the breakout rooms. We do hope that we continue to create space that is supportive as people work on their proposals for the upcoming funding rounds, but beyond that these are useful tools to continuously re-engage the work that you're doing, to take a pause. A theory of change is always great for the rationale, but it's supposed to be an alive document or a process or a framework that is alive in informing the things you're working on, you're testing as well. We do hope this was helpful in thinking about how do we, there's a big question number 8 that has no word limits. So how do I go about speaking to my work and the challenges I want to address? We do hope that the framework Jessica has walked us through and Agnes and everyone else is supportive for that, and that the metrics session also feels, for those that it was really challenging, that it feels more navigatable. Thank you again. If there's anything else we could do to support the proposal preparation process or the continuous implementation of your incredible work, please let us know, share with us the feedback. Thank you to the team for putting this together, and to Jessica so much. Thank you for rallying all of us to do this. And thank you everyone again for taking the time. And to our interpreters, we couldn't do this without you. So thank you so much. And I don't know if I left anything, Jessica, or we're good to say au revoir, merci. Gracias.
This is the messy time, which I love. It's my favorite time, where everybody opens up their mics and just shows each other recognition, love, and connection. So open up your mics, go crazy, say goodbye. Look, it's dark already here.
Au revoir, merci.
Merci beaucoup.
Thanks all.
See you soon live.
Thank you for the note takers. Thank you, thank you.
Bye.
Bye,
Bye-bye. It was
Clara.
lovely to meet you.
Hi, everyone.
Salut, Florence. Bonjour.
Jessica, can we stay a little bit after?
Salut Florence, salut Sylvia. Hello Flo, hello Sylvia, hello Anita. Oh, Lucio Lama, guy. We are mute.
Okay. Thank you, Agnes. See you later.
See you
Thank you.
soon.
And Jessica, of course, also.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.